What's up, YouTube? So if it looks like I am half asleep and drinking my coffee, that is because I am. Don't judge, but I understand if you do. So, uh, Rakdos. Haven't played Rakdos in a minute. Decided that's probably longer than it should be between Rakdos leagues. So let's go ahead and fire it up and see what happens. So decided to run through this league with a little bit of an old school feel to it, like Scourge of the Skyclaves, Teamer Battle Rage, cutting a lot of the grind factor, no like Fable of the Mirror Breakers, no Underworld breaches, just trying to get our opponent from 20 to 0 as fast as we can. Uh, in the one drop slot, along with just our Shadows, Ragavan, Channeler, we got 4 Lightning Bolt, because they go face, 4 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition, 2 Fatal Push, 2 drop slot. Little weird with a Kroxa, Terminate, a Battle Rage, 2 Blood Moons in the main, along with a K command, a Dismember, 4 Wraith, and an Agadeem's Awakening. I've really liked Agadeem's Awakening in Rakdos. Gives you like something you can do with your mana late game. So like you get up to Agadeem for 2, so like 5 mana, and you're looking at, oh, get a Kroxa back for another trigger, or a Scourge and a Shadow, or something like that. A lot better when Luris was around, but still really good. In the sideboard, 4 copies of Prismatic Ending, for any sort of troublesome permanent, whether it be like Sigarda's Aid out of Hammer Time, or opposing like Undying creatures that might get in the way. Really good against Sanctifier on Vec. For Leyline of the Void, trying for the Grave Hate. Not super big on Leyline, but figured I might as well try it anyway. 2 Turok, a 3rd copy of Blood Moon, 2nd copy of K Command, 2 extra Terminates, and an Engineered Explosives. So let's go ahead and jump in and see how it looks. Mostly, if you're thinking about playing Rakdos, like the big reasons to are Blood Moon access. So if you think being a Ragavan in a Blood Moon deck is good, and then you want access to cards like Terminate, you just want to be proactive and aggressive. So here on the play with a Channeler into Bobblehand, ditch a Shadow, because like our Shadows aren't currently online, and it also helps get me closer to Delirium. So we see our opponent's name on Magic Online is in fact Mayor of Value Town. So I'm really wondering if that means that they are like actually factually on Value Town. So we're gonna go ahead and get down or get Delirium enabled so we can start jamming in with our Channeler. Thoughtseize here to hopefully clear the way from anything too scary. We could have kept that Channeler on top to be able to double spell threats next turn, but really I'd just rather like find another land to enable Shadow. Uh, we see that our opponent is in fact on Value Town with Ghost Quarters, Collected Company, Horizon Canopy, Knight of the Reliquary, this Deep Root thing that like gets lands back and stuff. But all that's fine. We're just looking at like jamming through some damage. So yeah, Knight of the Reliquary down. Upkeep, we K command just to try to smooth out our draws a little bit better. And the fact that we get to kill a Knight of the Reliquary with K command just feels amazing. But just hoping we don't like put ourselves into a position to die to some infinite combo. But with Value Town, typically if we can get on the front foot and be proactive and aggressive, we've got a reasonable time. Siding out a couple Blood Moon, couple Scourges, because they're not going to do much to hurt themselves. Like so. And then they've got a lot of mana dorks, so trying to rely on what's it called? Trying to rely on Blood Moon is very risky. Good Channeler and point a bolt at Giver. Like honestly, both things kind of end up with the same result. Ghost Quarter themselves to get down a Renegade Rallier. And getting back Ghost Quarters pretty fine because like ultimately I get another opportunity to kind of strip their hand. Knock out this Giver of Runes. Trade with the Rallier. Don't trade with the Rallier. But it's fine. We're just trying to clear up the board as much as we can. Oh, got stuff covered. We can put Turok in front of the Renegade Rallier, terminate the Endurance, and we're at least like back kind of even. Dramoka's Command to put a counter on the Renegade Rallier. Pretty funny. Yuck. Voice of Resurgence is a nightmare to stare down here. And then we'll scoop to Tireless Tracker plus Fetch Land. That is in fact Value Town to the highest degree. You got to understand when you're at a point in a game where like you're not coming back from it. But here, if we get an attack in, then we're able to get Scourge enabled pretty quickly. Scavenging Ooze looks more like scavenging get pushed off the side of a cliff. And we get to not only like put Blood Moon in the yard, we get to enable our own Blood Moon on an empty board on their side with 2 non-basics. So feeling pretty good. Like Prismatic Ending, unfortunately, has to be a bit of a casualty of war here. But with like Channeler, Scourge, now Ragavan, Terminate, I feel pretty reasonable. Yeah. So I only brought in like 2 Blood Moons on the play in the hopes that maybe I would catch my opponent off guard. I don't want any of them on the draw. All right, so Prowess. I assume Prowess. Finding second land is very nice. So we'll go ahead and push the Harmonic Prodigy off a cliff. Got Delirium enabled, but unfortunately, like, Channeler does get answered by this deck very, very easily. This turn, I should have just gone ahead and Windmill Slammed the Blood Moon. Like, my life total is very healthy, but I could have stopped stuff like Expressive Iteration by just getting the Blood Moon down, taking the 3. Obviously, it's not a perfect plan, but I think it would have been better in the long run. Yeah, light up the stage and Underworld Breach is going to be pretty tough to beat. I think I end up just scooping here as soon as my opponent puts Breach on the stack. Because, like, yeah, I know I'm not dead to the Breach this turn, but with Bobble drawing them like 6 or 7 cards, I can't compete with that. And I know a lot of people are putting Underworld Breach in like their Rakdos lists. And I think if you're like really interested in playing that kind of grindy mid-range game, that's fine, but I don't think Rakdos is like the version you want to play if that's something that you're interested in. Like I would just play Grixis at that point. So opponent does decide to ditch Bolt and the Dart in the Yard and a land to get rid of the first Scourge. So I'm hoping that just hitting them in the face enough times will be good enough. Go ahead and kill the Swift Spear, get back this other Scourge. And now we actually have our opponent dead because we're able to just like kill both the threats, get our life total low enough to turn Scourge into a clock, 1 turn clock, this turn clock. Suppose we shouldn't even call it a 1 turn clock if they don't get 1 turn. Just a now clock. Game 3 hand, kind of questionable. Say kind of questionable, like pretty questionable. Ragavan on the draw is not that good. Triple Ragavan on that draw is not that better. And it's always unfortunate because, like, it's not like our opponent's hand is that good. We are just not doing much of anything. Go ahead and take out the Harmonic Prodigy. Do have a follow up threat. We get a second land, so we're not out of the woods. Certainly not in a good spot, especially after a breach. And yeah, they've just got Bolt us out for lethal. The joys of Rakdos. If you stumble hard. Like at least with the blue base shadow decks, if you stumble, you have the ability to say no. Like, hey, I stumbled and now I've counterspelled something. Jetmir Garden almost assuredly means some sort of leyline binding deck. I kind of thought they were burn off the Arid Mesa, so I was being a little conservative turn number 1. We do in fact see both a leyline binding and a prismatic ending. Opponent goes to bolt the shadow. We bolt ourselves. All we're really trying to do here is like run them out of cards, like chip away at the removal. Try to set up to where we can just find like a threat, untap, battle rage that threat, and have lethal. Don't try to do too much. Spell Pierce is super rough there. But again, just like looking for a shadow, a scourge. Nice. All right. So we've got a little bit of protection. Not from that, but had a little bit of protection from like an Archon. And top deck creativity. Oof. Oof. The joys of playing fair magic. Like Temur Battle Rage and Death Shadow. All right. From time to time, you'll see me keep these hands, these like no land hands. just because of a bunch of street wraiths. This is usually the kind of thing where I'm like testing the limits of a deck. Like, hey, I'm gonna keep this in a league, but I would never keep this in a premier event, or if something important, if cash is on the line, whatever the case may be. But for the sake of like trying stuff out in leagues and seeing what happens, I'm a little more flexible there. Triple lightning bolt. Oof. So we know they have a lightning bolt. I should have just gone ahead and played out the shadow and a channeler. It's got Dwarven Mine, so we know their last card in hand. This was also a punt. So I don't want to go down to 4 if I'm not killing them, because I don't want them to have Bolt Me, untap Ren and 6. I was thinking about the damage before I did anything. Like, okay, I can fetch once. So Shadow becomes a 9/9, so I can only deal 18 damage, but they have a 1/1 blocker. I completely forgot about them losing the life to fetch to get the Dwarven Mine. So, yes, I had lethal there. Yes, I missed the lethal there. But opponent just top deck to fetch land, so we've got the exact same scenario again, so we know they're dead. Like, I realized it right after damage, just, oh, they're at 17 because they lost life off the fetch. Battle Rage. If I didn't mention it, sideboarding against creativity. Ragavan's pretty rough. If you're expecting them to have a bunch of reanimate effects, a bunch of persists, then Leyline of the Void's better. It's also good against Ren and 6. But all right, so they've got an iteration, they've got a creativity, Emrakul in hand. Taken pending. There's Blood Moon. I know that I've got the Blood Moon, so like I don't want to be I don't want to give away that I have this Blood Moon. So that's why I'm playing like a little conservative or little aggressive with my lands. Was not expecting change the equation, but it did make me glad that I let off on the Shadow and not on the Blood Moon, because like now I have the ability to bolt them, set up Battle Rage for lethal, or if they do something sketchy. Uh, yeah, so that was lethal with a bolt them Battle Rage. I bolt them down to 14. Scourge becomes a 6/6. Tramples over for 5, down to 9. Scourge becomes a 9/9. So yeah, I should have just gone for it there. Like, it's probably not the worst thing to not go for it, because once I get Blood Moon down, they're pretty well locked out if they don't have exactly a lightning bolt right now to kill the Scourge. It's pretty much game over. Yeah, now since they don't have an answer response to the lightning bolt, then I know it's good that Scourge is good to kill them. But I probably should have just gone for lethal the turn before. I kind of had my mind set on Blood Moon too prematurely. All right, so see, counterspell, Street Wraith, Drown, couple fetches. So pretty positive it's Dimir Shadow. Murktide kind of gives it away there. Was really hoping to take this Drown in the lock. Obviously, if we just keep ripping hand hate, then that looks pretty good. But I really want this Drowning Lock out of hand before I play out the Scourge. Unfortunately, having played the other side of this matchup a reasonable bit, I do know that you are very light on removal overall. So if I'm able to take like the Fatal Push they had, the Drown in the Lock, then there's a reasonable chance that they just like don't find another way of interacting with Scourge. So they played this Murktide here. Maybe I set up something like they counterspell the Terminate and I untap drop Scourge. They can't kill me in one shot. And I might have a one shot on the backswing. So we got Scourge down. And they found another Fatal Push. So died a Murktide there. This I've said the quote before on stream before, and I'll say it again here because it's probably one of my absolute favorite quotes ever. And it like relates to my style of magic more than anything I know. And it's a quote that Jeff Hoogland said on stream back when he was streaming a bunch of magic, and it's the best form of card advantage is killing your opponent while they still have cards in their hand. And I think that's what Murktide or Dimir Shadow, Dimir Murktide exemplifies to me. People are always talking about like, oh, play Night's Whisper or Tainted Indulgence or whatever for card advantage. And I try to tell people like you don't really need it because there's a very good chance you're going to kill your opponent like right here while we still have cards in hand because our cards just don't do anything useful. Like our removal spells are dead. We can't double up anything to take out the Murktide. It's just a thing that a lot of decks are not very well prepared to deal with. And so if you're thinking about taking up Dimir Shadow, if that's a deck you're looking at, take a look into that saying before you start adding a bunch of unnecessary spells to the deck. Just, hey, card advantage is great, but maybe I don't need it here. Maybe my form of card advantage is being more selective over what I counter. Uh, Post board against Dimir. Treating it kind of like most Shadow Mirrors, just taking out some Street Wraiths, leaving in Thought Seizes because of Murktide, and I really need to like protect my threat. Dismember's bad, Bolt's bad, Battle Rage is bad. Scourge ended up trimming Scourges because of Dress Down, even though Dress Down isn't very good against the rest of our deck. Notably the Shadows. It's okay against Channeler and Ragavan, but mostly Shadow. I also kept this hand only because it was so threat heavy. Again, having played the other side of this matchup a lot, I know Ragavan can give you fits. So let's try to get another threat down. Counterspell is fine. Counterspell gets taken by, or second counterspell gets taken by Thoughtseize. Consider's fine. We've got this Thoughtseize coming off the top to kind of try to clear the way a bit. We've got Delirium enabled. We'll pay for stub because ultimately, like, lowering our life is just helping Shadow, so that's fine. Really want our opponent to not top deck a Murktide right here. And I kind of feel like if they don't top deck a Murktide, I've got a very reasonable chance. Not particularly afraid of losing a bunch of life points. I should have just led on the Turok. Um, I don't think it was going to I was muted there. That's like the level. So level 0 play, level 1, level 2. Level 0 is let me lightning bolt the grief, attack in for 10, put them to 2, have bolt, get a Ragavan trigger, maybe cast something. Next turn they flip the Fable. I've got lightning bolt. And as long as they don't like draw anything crazy, I should be okay. Level 1 is attack in, and if they block the Scourge, then I get the damage in with Ragavan. Scourge eats the grief. I get a Ragavan trigger. They're at 10. Scourge now at 9/9. I'm presenting lethal next turn with Bolt, and they get the flip Fable. And then level 2 is attack in, and if opponent messes up and blocks the Ragavan, then I just get to bolt them for lethal. Because now it's bolt you, you're down to 9. Scourge becomes a 9/9 because I'm at 11 and my life total is now the highest. So sometimes just giving your opponent a chance to mess up is absolutely worth it. Highly recommend it. And you got to think about like what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is that they block the Scourge and they still take 2 off the Ragavan. I get a treasure. I get a an exile the top card of their library trigger. Like worst case scenario is still not bad. All right, so opponent scams a grief, gets a push and a shadow. The push, a little bit unfortunate to lose, but that's how it be sometimes. Thought sees my other shadow. So between the fetch land, well, now this thought sees in the fetch land, I do have delirium. Obviously not with my opponent fatal pushing, but one step at a time. Take 4, go to 8 here. Then K command might just get back like a shadow or something. My thought process here is if I K command, make them discard, get back shadow, then I could double threat next turn and stand in front of this grief. Obviously, that changes if I draw a terminate. My opponent's empty handed, so we'll take that. There is no difference between 3 and 1 here. I'm already dead to bolt, so I might as well improve my hits off this channeler here by trying to like scry away something dead. And it also makes it so channeler or shadow is lethal next turn in case they find a removal spell for shadow. If I was at 4 life, I wouldn't thought seize because I would just be putting myself in a position to be dead to a top deck bolt that I wasn't dead to already. But since I was at 3, I'm okay with the thought seize. So we did see wins from Temur Battle Rage and Blood Moon. Scourge didn't look as bad as I thought it was going to, so that was pretty cool. Channeler gets like a little bit of a buff because it's a Scourge deck, but I think you could also just cut Channeler and run like Knight's Whisper or something and feel pretty fine. Yeah, like Channeler's fine. It's not gonna really win you games. It just kind of sets up some of your other stuff. But again, wouldn't fault you at all for like not playing it. Sideboard, Leyline of the Void, I think was meh. I'd still rather see Nihil Spellbomb there just so you can get the redraw if you want it. Blood Moon was solid. Terminate was really good. K Command, I don't think is it's gonna pain me to say it. I don't think K Command is a modern playable card anymore. Like, it's fine. It'll have a little use here and there, and you'll feel big brain for playing K Command. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just like not on the power level you need to be on. to be an aggro deck or a mid range deck in modern in the red black color scheme. So I'm probably going to end up doing something like cut K command for a second Croxa, cut the Dragon's Rage channelers for maybe like a second Battle Rage. Maybe two Night's Whispers and something else. Another Inquisition. I don't know, another Fatal Push. We'll see. Um, just something to kind of keep the gas going. It does feel like you run out of gas in this deck a decent bit. And unlike Murktide, where Murktide itself offers you a lot of card advantage by not being dead to everything that your opponent has, this deck with like Ragavan turns on all of your opponent's removal very, very easily. So having just more cards is pretty important. I could also see like Street Wraith is good, but I don't fault anybody for cutting Wraith, cutting Dismember, cutting Agademe, and just going Giganta. And that would be very easy if you dropped Leyline of the Void for like Spellbomb, like I said, or Hearse, whatever. And I do think Giganta is very good in these style of decks. So when people ask about Giganta, the best way I can explain it is Giganta is really, really good in the list that uh, are going to be behind if you trade 1-for-1. So with a deck like Grixis, Giganta can go either way because yeah, you're trading 1-for-1 a lot, but you also have like expressive iterations and ledger shredders, Ragavans, whatnot. And here, all of your removals 1-for-1. All of your threats are just trying to either like get across the finish line or get chump blocked. And so a lot of times just having like one more card does a lot. But at the cost of what, Street Wraith and Agademe. And if you're running like Night's Whisper, you might not even need Street Wraith. So that's at least worth looking into. See kind of how it plays out. Probably give it a shot at some point. But as always, if you're liking the video, liking the content, drop a follow on the YouTube channel. Greatly helps. The link to the Twitch stream will be down below, deck list and everything. Otherwise, I hope you all have an awesome rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. Catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.